Every region needs its heroes. Tonight's tale is about a national hero that has local tales associated with him that, as far as I know, are only told here in Washington. As far as the validity of the tale, you can be the judge. I will say that I have heard several variations of this tale from several sources. I've combined some of the versions and pieces that I found the most interesting. I will also say that I find some validity in this seemingly outlandish story. If you stick around to the end of the video, I will tell you the parts that I think ring true. What if I told you that a former US president not only was said to have knowledge of Sasquatch, but actually was rumored to have faced one in hand-to-hand combat? If you like what you hear, you may want to hear the original version of this story. I've collected local lore and history and first-hand encounters into an anthology series called Northwest Mythology. 2 volumes are currently available to buy on my website. And while you're there, make sure you take a look around. And while you're here watching this video, please make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize the channel. Turn on your notifications so you can stay up to date whenever I drop new videos. I call this tale Paranormal Presidential Protection. One of the most famous heroes of the Olympic Peninsula is the 26th President Theodore Roosevelt, also known as Teddy Roosevelt. He was well known for being a decorated wrestler, fighter, and avid weightlifter. He wrestled and boxed throughout his time at Harvard, and he had a good record. After his time in college, he enlisted in the service and led a group of mounted cowboys known as the Rough Riders. They fought in the Spanish-American War, where they received several awards for valor. They were detrimental in winning the important Battle of San Juan Hill. Teddy led a mounted charge up the hill into an entrenched enemy position. Teddy rallied his men by giving a motivational speech. Then he led them up the hill through a barrage of bullets. They overran the position and won the battle because of that charge. After the war, he became a senator where he continued his wrestling, and he began to pursue other forms of hand-to-hand combat. He was known to have brought famous wrestlers and heavyweight boxing champions to his personal residence, and later, when he was president, to the White House, and they'd train and spar together. Teddy was even known to have started taking jiu-jitsu and karate classes before it was well known to most of the Western population. Teddy was such a badass that when an assassin shot him, he subdued the assassin and prevented him from getting lynched by an angry mob while bleeding. He was said to have inspected the wound, and not seeing any bubbly-looking blood, he concluded that his lungs hadn't been punctured. And despite complaints from his staff, he then delivered a long speech, like an hour long, before going to the hospital to receive treatment. Teddy also loved the outdoors, and he was an avid hunter, hiker, and fisherman. Although it's taboo today, Teddy would travel all over the world to hunt exotic species of the time. These beasts were mainly rumors in the early 1900s. He was known to have hunted elephants and rhinos in Africa and snow leopards and tigers in Asia. He was going after a buffalo in Wyoming one year when a bear charged and knocked him from his horse. In the fall, he lost his rifle and he couldn't find it. And he grabbed a large stick in desperation, and he began to subdue the grizzly with the stick. And his hunting party was several minutes away. As they approached, they watched the future president beat this bear until it took off running. And that led him to adopt the philosophy, speak softly and carry a big stick, you will go far. And he used that term to negotiate with other countries when he became president. And his friends nicknamed him Teddy after that incident as a joke about his hostile nature. The joke was he was as soft as a teddy bear, which of course this was far from the truth. How did Teddy Roosevelt become a hero for the Olympic Peninsula? In 1937, he visited the area for an elk hunting trip. After exploring and shooting a fine specimen of an elk, he designated the region as a national park to preserve the wilderness for future generations. The elk are still named Roosevelt elk because of this trip. Without his foresight, the whole area would be many times more developed. It'd be full of housing complexes and buildings instead of the vast sprawling forest that we can enjoy today. This was one of the largest and first national parks in the country. The secret legend of the trip, however, is a more exciting story. Teddy was known to travel all over the world to seek out rare animals to hunt. It was rumored that he also traveled around the globe to hunt cryptids from different regions. Legend has it that Teddy was successful, and many of these specimens are in the Smithsonian Natural History Museum's basement, and they're just tucked away somewhere, forgotten in crates. After local Northwest chiefs visited the White House, they were said to have told Teddy about our local monster of our region, Sasquatch, that lurked in the primordial forest of the Olympic Peninsula. They told Teddy that this was one beast he could not kill, as it lived partially in the spirit realm. Being an avid scholar, Teddy then began to research how to defeat a creature like that. He looked all the way back at Greek myths, Viking sagas, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and any other source that he could get his hands on. There are quite a few, as he had access to whatever he wanted because he could go to the Library of Congress. He discovered that creatures like Sasquatch, trolls, and other supernatural beings are said to not be able to be hurt by standard weapons. Only magical weapons are said to be able to hurt or kill these creatures that are not wholly of this material realm. Since Teddy had no access to magical weapons, he went back to the drawing board. He remembered his teachings of Nordic sagas from his time at Harvard and a famous old story called Beowulf. In the story, Beowulf, a mighty warrior, defeats an evil troll named Grendel. Grendel was said to be of tremendous strength and size, as well as being deadly. He could tear off a man's arm with only his bare hand, trained warriors, and was able to disappear at will. He was also immune to their weapons. Beowulf killed Grendel by ripping off his arms after they had a ferocious wrestling match. The president then knew how to defeat Sasquatch. He also recalled that the most famous Greek hero of them all, Hercules, had also killed many mythical creatures by relying on only his wits and brawn to win the day. Finally, he researched that Gilgamesh, maybe the original hero, had dispatched many terrifying creatures by relying on his muscles and courage to win the day. The president devised a plan to kill Sasquatch by using his well-trained and muscled physique. He felt that he had trained his whole life for this culminating event. So after tracking the Sasquatch for several weeks, the president thought he had him cornered by Mount Olympus in today's Olympic National Park. It's the tallest peak in the mountain range. Here the president called the Sasquatch to meet him in a wrestling match, called him out. The Sasquatch was said to materialize nearby, having heard this call, and he sensed the presence of a worthy opponent without weapons. The president and the Sasquatch wrestled for several hours, but neither one was able to gain the upper hand. The fight was said to go back and forth, with one opponent looking defeated only to counter and quickly gain the initiative. This went on for a long time. The giant Sasquatch struck the president a blow to the side of the head that sent him staggering back, almost towards a steep cliff. Just before falling off, the president grabbed the nearest thing, and it happened to be his old favorite weapon, another big stick, just like the one that he had used all those years before to dispatch that grizzly. Fate seemed to have placed another stick there just in time to save the president. He sensed destiny in the air as he grabbed the stick, and he channeled the last of his energy and strength as he swung it with all his might, praying as he did that he'd be lucky to land a blow and save him from his impending defeat. The blow struck the surprised Sasquatch and stunned the beast, just long enough for the president to get the upper hand. The president quickly used that initiative to pin the Sasquatch to the ground, and he was about to deliver the coup de grace with that stick, just ready to get that killing blow. But he was shocked when Sasquatch started to speak in broken English, "Don't kill me." And the president was shocked, and the Sasquatch begged him to establish a preserve to help protect its species. The Sasquatch explained that they were an ancient race, and that the Olympic Peninsula was one of the few places his people had left. But men recently had come hacking and burning up all the ancient woods. They were logging and mining without regard to the natural balance. Without protection, there would soon be no place left for a species. The Sasquatch knew that they would become extinct without intervention from the president. The president took pity. He loved nature, and he saw the truth of those words. He saw the honesty, and he knew that they were going to be driven to extinction without his presidential intervention. According to the Sasquatch, only a few family units were left in the whole world. The president was also impressed at Sasquatch wrestling ability. So he named the park Olympic National Park to honor the original Olympic sport of wrestling and to celebrate that legendary match that took place under the shadow of its highest peak, Mount Olympus. To this day, Sasquatch is still rumored there locally to accept a challenge by a worthy opponent for a wrestling match. A worthy opponent must issue the challenge in an epic location for Sasquatch to show up. Wrestling is still widely practiced and loved here in Washington, possibly because of this early influence. And Sasquatch won't show up if you have weapons either. In conclusion, I do find some truth to this story. Teddy Roosevelt has been documented to have more than a passing interest in Sasquatch and other cryptids. Chiefs of the PNW did come to the White House and tell him stories of Sasquatch and many other local cryptids around here in Washington. And the president was said to become very intrigued and looked up many documented accounts of earlier explorers and pioneers that had come across Sasquatch while they were mapping the West. I do believe that Teddy may have been responsible for scrubbing most of these accounts from the mainstream historical records. Prior to the early 1900s, Sasquatch and similar local cryptids were a pretty common and well-documented occurrence. I don't think that it is a coincidence that after visiting Washington, President Roosevelt immediately started the national parks. I think he did have some kind of interaction with the famous and beloved cryptid of the region. Did he have a wrestling match? I don't know. You be the judge. That's a tale we tell each other all the time as kids. But it would certainly seem that the national park boundaries seem to act as a reservation for Sasquatch and other cryptids. If visitors stick to the designated area, they seem to be pretty safe. If they wander too far off the beaten path, they do seem to go missing at an alarming frequency. I also think that the government is withholding information about what it knows about Sasquatch and many other cryptids, Dogman and Thunderbirds, either to protect the cryptids or maybe the public. How many people would go invade the deep woods if the government confirmed the existence of a Sasquatch race or these other cryptids? The final question is, could a human defeat a Sasquatch or cryptid? I think there is also something in this tale and older tales about how heroes defeated these creatures. It's been well documented from testimonials that Sasquatch has some immunity to firearms. Now, is this complete immunity or are they just tougher than other species? That could be debated. But what cannot be debated is the sheer amount of cryptids throughout history that have been defeated all over the world by either unarmed combatants or with enchanted weapons. Some people claim to know how to make enchanted weapons, but I wouldn't put my life in the hands of an enchanted weapon that had never been tested against one of these creatures. I think the true power comes not from enchanted weapons, but from not being scared. I've run into Sasquatch making scary noises on several occasions on my journeys. And I can tell you firsthand that it freezes the marrow in your bones. You just freeze up and you want to just start running away as fast as you can. And many people never want to have another encounter with Sasquatch ever again and will actively avoid it after running into Sasquatch. Sasquatch and many cryptids can sense the fear and seem to get stronger and feed off of it, growing in strength. Remember, our emotions have power in the supernatural realm. Enchanted weapons or having a belief in yourself might be able to defeat them and give us strength if we do have to combat them. And it seems to strengthen us while weakening them. I don't know that I'd ever have the courage to face a cryptid in a fight. The times I've come across them, it was all I could do to not run in fear. But if ancient tales and Teddy Roosevelt are examples. This might be what it takes if your life depends on it. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Like I said, we're trying to get to 1,000 subs. We're getting really close. I upload new videos of the strange and supernatural weekly. If you want to support my writing, make sure you pick up a copy of one of my books. It really helps out and keeps me motivated to write more. Visit my website, northwestmythology.com. It'll be linked in the description. I love weird, strange, scary, funny, heroic stories and look forward to sharing many more. And I also often get asked, why don't I try to challenge Sasquatch to a wrestling match? I'm a big, strong guy. These are all just theories and stories. For all I know, if I tried to wrestle a Sasquatch, chances would be good that I would get my arms ripped off. Also, I believe that Sasquatch and other cryptids are just trying to live their lives. They don't deserve to be wrestled or hunted and harassed any more than any other type of rare creature. Let me know what you think. Can Sasquatch be shot? Do cryptids gain power from fear? Leave a comment below letting me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.